real quick before we get going, we are launching a new video series called March Mad CSS. It's a CSS battle tournament with 16 of the world's best developers. Josh Komu, Chris Coyer, Adam Wathan of Tailwind, Cassidy Williams, even Scott and I. Now, we have a ton of prizes to give away. And if you want to win, go to madcss.com and you're going to fill out the bracket. So madcss.com, log in with your GitHub, and you're going to pick who you think is going to win each of these. And whoever gets the highest score is going to win this amazing prize pack. Like this sick CSS jacket. You can also order this from the website as well. We got some pretty cool merch, some tees, stickers, and Nalgene. First, second, third prize. Go to Mad CSS, make your picks. You can share them with your friends. You'll probably win. Peace.
Ooh, welcome to Oh, it's not good my water. Too much. All right, let's try that again.
Emphatic. Welcome to Syntax. There we go. I'll do it for you. How about that?
Oh yeah, it's so funny. I like to get big, and that's not really conducive to having water. You know what, Wes? Have you ever spilled water all over your stuff before at your computer?
Yeah, it's part of the reason why I keep my laptop on a stand all the time. Because many times I've dumped water, especially on my keyboard. But one time, one of our kids dumped water on my wife's MacBook and just fried the whole thing. And luckily, our credit card insurance covered the entire thing, and they bought us a brand new one. But man, yeah, I'm so scared of that type of thing. I don't mind a keyboard getting drenched, but not a laptop.
I've never for as much as my nickname growing up was the King of Spills, and I still do spill occasionally, and I have never spilled liquid on my laptop. Not soup, not drink, not anything.
Knock
and that
on
is
wood.
Shocking. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And my computer's also on risers, though. So if I did spill, it would have to be a pretty tremendous spill. There's no app for that, but I did make an app to solve my video feed problems. And we're going to be talking about Electron apps. We're going to be talking about Tauri apps, Electrobun, desktop apps with web tech, and the choices that I made to get this app up and running in this episode of Syntax. What's up? My name is Scott Tolinsky. I'm a developer from Denver, and with me as always is Wes Boss. What's up, Wes?
I am stoked to hear about this because this is something we've been complaining about that we've wanted for so long, and it's just the tech behind how to do it. Like, I know you've taken several stabs at it. I vibe coded something similar at one point, and it's just like there's lots of apps out there that do what this does, but just we've tried them all, and they're all extremely frustrating.
They're all very frustrating, and so long story short, I built an app to solve my biggest needs of wanting a professional video recording app for my computer that doesn't do too much or not enough, because the way most of these things work, there's a ton of them out there, screen capturing, and it's like usually you can record a screen, maybe a couple screens, you can maybe record your camera and audio, but the ones that allow you to do the stuff that I needed to do, i.e. Choosing as many sources as I want, they then tried to do too much by shoving proprietary formats, crappy video editors, bad automatic features, stuff you don't need in addition to this. The way that I like to work is I like to record a whole bunch of sources, whether that is individual browser windows or screens or several different audio or several different video sources all at once. And then I like to have all of those as independent individual files that I can just drop into my editor. You know what's crazy? There's like I could go through the list of all the apps that are in the same realm but don't do this. But like ScreenFlow, you can have as many sources as you want, but then they spit you out into their editor, and everything's in a .screenflow wrapper that you can't even get the files out of.
Yeah, I actually looked into it. I found their CLI and like tried to figure out how to get the files out, and they're literally storing them in like a SQLite database, and they're storing everything in there, the frame diffs, everything. So it's not even a file that you could get out of there. They're storing raw blobs of data in there. And ScreenFlow is by far, as much as I hate it, and it seems to be abandoned right now, it is by far the best actual recorder, except like I'll use it for like an hour we're recording with like Randy, and then I gotta export my screen. That takes
and then
maybe
it takes hour.
45 minutes. And then I got to export my camera. That's another 45 minutes, and it's just too slow for that type of thing.
Yeah, so that's another concern, is that a lot of these things, even after you record, one I used to use was called, what was it called? It was by... it was a I Show You, and the reason I liked I Show You is because it did essentially this. The only problem is that at the end of a session, it would then automatically do the processing, and that processing, you'd be sitting there waiting like 45 minutes. So if you wanted to record multiple things in a row, maybe deal with the processing later, you were waiting all this time. So the requirements for me is that it had to record all of these sessions, or all of these different screens and everything as individual sources that I could then use in my editor of choice. It also needed to not have that processing time, because dang, I got better things to do with my life than to sit and wait for my computer to process video. Not only that processing time is largely unnecessary. The reason why that exists is because typically these things are converting into a format like MP4 or MOV, which why? I didn't necessarily understand the need for that. So if you've ever used OBS to record, you'll know that it can record to MKV, and MKV, you don't have any processing time in that, right? It's just recording to an MKV and then stitching it all together at the end or whatever, however.
It doesn't even stitch it. The MKV file itself is... meaning you can just continually add to it, and then if it were to go corrupt or break or something like that, you wouldn't actually use it. There's no ending process as far as I know.
Yes.
You're simply just tacking on.
And that was another thing. So the ending process or corruption is another requirement I had, was that if the app crashes for whatever reason, I cannot lose footage. I should be able to reopen the app and start recording again, and I cannot lose footage. So those were my main requirements. I've lost too many video recordings to OBS taking up so much memory that my video stutters, ScreenFlow or other things crashing, or just straight up having to sit and wait. So those were my main requirements, and this app tries to solve all of those things, really. And I think it does so quite successfully, because we record as MKV. Again, if it crashes, you not only get each individual raw session file right now. So they're currently stored as WebM as it's recording in individual segments. And I'll talk about the technical decisions for some of this stuff. And then they're put together in an MKV afterwards. But again, that doesn't take any processing time. In fact, the only processing time happens is stitching together the audio and turning it into a wave. And I actually got around that at one point by using MKA as the audio format, but nothing supports MKA. Not even DaVinci supports MKA, so I had to move. Yeah.
Let me ask a question there. So you're recording to WebM, likely because it's we'll talk about the tech, but because it's coming off the browser, right? And that's what what it supports. But then you do have to convert it from WebM to MKV, no?
It's just stitching it together is really what it is.
But that's processing, is it not?
It takes.
It really?
You don't see it. Yeah, the processing
very,
time
very fast.
Takes an entirely in audio processing.
Oh, okay, awesome. And one more thing we should say here is that something that I've been trying to get into and trying to do for the last year or so is instead of recording screens, recording your screen is great, right? But what's even better is recording, if you want, you can record the apps themselves. And that's great, because if you tab away from something, or if you don't show something for a second and you realize, I kind of wanted to show the browser, or I wanted to show the terminal at the same time, but they weren't on the screen at the same time, they continually record, and you can just you can zoom them in and whatever. You have all of the individual sources. It's kind of sometimes it's nicer to just record your single screen, and whatever you put on the screen gets recorded. But other times, especially when I do TikTok videos or whatever, it's nice to have the individual tracks of every single app, and then you don't have to worry about accidentally hiding something.
Yeah. And what's so cool about this too is the fact that I'm not hiding anything in proprietary wrappers means that at any given point you can if it crashes or whatever, again, you can just open VFramer and click reprocess. It's going to spit out whatever it is as the completed file. So if you don't have that end of session cleanup happen, there's no data loss, which is big. So those were the choices. And when I first started this app, I started it in Tauri, which is the desktop app framework. We've talked about it on this show. Tauri is interesting because it uses the built-in OS WebView. So on Mac OS, that becomes WebKit-WebView, which I'll talk about why I moved off of Tauri. It was because of that. But also, it has Rust instead of TypeScript or JavaScript for the app side of things.
Like the back end,
so,
right? Like your UI is JavaScript and HTML, CSS, but your actual back end logic or like is Rust versus like Electron, where it's Node code.
Yeah, so I had initially started this with Tauri, and I first initially ran into issues that totally sidelined me from working on it, because at the time I just didn't want to convert it to Electron, and I was just annoyed by it, so I just quit. And that was that the WKWebView did not support the dialog for Media Recorder, which is crazy because it supported the ability to use Get User Media, but the dialog that pops up that allows you to select the screens, that did not exist in WKWebView. So it would just be like, your permissions aren't set. It would just like fail on a permissions issue, even if it wasn't a permissions issue. So like that drove me absolutely nuts. And then that got fixed at some point in Tauri. They did something to fix that. And I got past that point with Tauri at that point and was like, oh, okay, great. I can now record all these screens. And I recorded, and no matter what I did, Wes, the end results were coming out blurry. And it was so frustrating because it didn't look blurry in the preview, and it was just screen recordings. So my video looked great, but the screen recordings were blurry. And I couldn't figure out if it was something with my process or what. And it turns out Safari doesn't give you the retina resolution of screen recordings. So I did all this work. And all of a sudden it's like Safari is screwing me again by not giving me high resolution screen recordings. And I will say there's a reason why I went with this type of web tech instead of trying to do everything in a native way. And some of that is that the Rust ecosystem for that wasn't mature enough, or not good enough. I ran into all kinds of crazy file size issues and all sorts of stuff. And maybe it's a skill issue there, but Get User Media is great because it has the ability to say, hey, which screens, which sources, all this stuff, click them. Those are the sources. And then basically send those along as small chunks of data to the server side for processing. So there's nothing inherently wrong with using Get User Media for this as opposed to Apple APIs or something. But Safari, man, just that resolution thing killed me. And it was so actually annoying to figure out that that's what the issue was, to be honest. So at that point, I decided, you know what? Screw this. I am going to Electron. And my gosh, that's the best decision ever. Electron gets a lot of heat for reasons why I think people just like to hate on Chrome. One, that's a thing. People don't like Chrome. It does use memory, but also there's a lot of crappy Electron apps out there. So oftentimes people have been using an app that uses a lot of memory and they're like, oh, it's Electron, therefore it sucks. But I think VS Code has shown that an app can be Electron and still be performant. If VS Code is slow, it's because of extensions, not because of VS Code, right? So I moved to Electron, which was painful, and it was a process. But after I got it into Electron, about that was the thing that set this from being oh, this is just something that I'm working on here and there, to, oh, this is a thing. This is a tool I can actually use and get out there to the world. There's also a new thing called Electrobun, which, let me pull up Electrobun. Where did I have that tab? Electrobun is very new and did not exist when I made the transition to Electron, but I probably wouldn't have chosen it anyways because it is too fresh, and I got so burned on the Tauri thing that I was like, you know what? I need something mature. But Electrobun tries to do a little bit of a hybrid approach. It uses all kinds of interesting stuff. And one note here is it does use the default web view out of the box, which in this case would be Safari on Mac OS. And I tweeted about that being a bummer or a hard thing to work around. And you can use Chrome in this. I acknowledge that you could use Chrome in this, but the creator of this still got upset that I did not say that you can use Chrome. I don't think
you can switch it out.
Yeah, you can switch it out. I don't think having the native web view is a sell. I'm going to be honest with that, because the native web view being different browsers with different capabilities on each OS or even version of OS makes testing, predictability, everything a complete nightmare. With Electron,
almost like web development.
It is like web development, but to an extreme sense, because you're dealing with like a lot more APIs that can write files and do all kinds of stuff. Like
you're
so
using
for me,
the lower level APIs that are like accessing hardware and like, even like one example would be like, what if you needed Bluetooth for this? You know, what if you wanted to connect to a Bluetooth mic directly from your
MIDI
app? You wouldn't be able to do that in Safari, right? Because there's no APIs for that.
You couldn't do MIDI either, which is like, so to me, I'm like, it's got to be one browser, predictable, and it has to work. There's a Bun API for this. I haven't used this, but it looks neat. Again, it's very fresh, and I'm sure there's a lot of great things about it. But again, I think I'm going to stick to something maybe a little bit more established when I'm doing this stuff. And like I said, I think Electron gets a lot of hate. But man, my experience with Electron and building in Electron has been very positive. Overall, I was enjoying myself.
So my question, and I'm sure you have an answer, and people are probably thinking this right now, is this: so you're capturing all of this media in the browser, and then you are using the browser to like take those chunks of data and sending them to your backend, which you're saving them, and then at the end of it, you put them all into an MKV.
Yes.
If you already have some process running natively on the user's computer, why not just use native APIs for this? You know, like there's a whole set of new Swift APIs for recording the screen. There's like I don't know how to say his last name, Tenuto. He has FrameCap, which is like a CLI for recording, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, why not just use like native APIs and take the browser? Like the browser can still be a UI to click the buttons and whatnot, but like you have to put everything through the browser now. And in my experience, I have some issues in Chrome where it like drops frames and it's a little bit weird.
Yeah. So I will say, reason being is that I didn't want to get into cross-platform messiness there. Like, I would love to release this on all platforms. There's nothing that would stop me from doing that.
Yeah.
Because what does this use? It uses the browser to send it, and it uses FFmpeg to do anything. Like, there's nothing inherently Mac OS-y about this. And the last thing I wanted to do was have to start, building deeply into different OSs when, in my experience, and I will say, several of the videos that I've released on the Syntax channel and my personal channel have been recorded with this. And I've done hour-long sessions or whatever in this, and I'm not seeing any frame drops. I'm not seeing any crazy memory usage. I'm not seeing any performance issues. So for me, like, the proof in that I didn't need to go there was simply that it worked. That was it for me. If it didn't work and I was running into issues, then I would have absolutely changed that approach.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is that I'm not recording into the browser. I'm not saving files into anything into the browser. I'm simply just capturing those chunks and then hot potatoing them immediately to the backend code. And if you want to see all of the errors in your application, you'll want to check out Sentry at sentry.io/syntax. You don't want a production application out there that, well, you have no visibility into in case something is blowing up and you might not even know it. So head on over to sentry.io/syntax. Again, we've been using this tool for a long time and it totally rules. All right.
Yeah. That makes sense. And like, as long as it works, right? Like I've tried so many things in the past. Like I have this obs.wesboss.com. Like I built an entire UI to control, there's a plugin for OBS called Source Record. And that allows you to record multiple sources. And it's so obnoxious because you have to add all these scenes and then you have to apply a filter to each one and then you have to turn them on and off. So I built a whole UI that will like connect with WebSockets and it will send screenshots, because that's a big thing for me, is like I want to see what it is I'm recording. I want to make sure that it's grabbing it, right? Like you showed like a little preview of it there. That's super important. But then I built a UI that would turn them on and off and start and stop the recording, and it works great, but sometimes it doesn't because the source record plugin is this like add-on thing to OBS, and it just spins out of control, uses a ton of memory. Sometimes it doesn't work, like it's just random bugs. And like I don't want something that will sometimes not work, because you're losing data. That sucks, right?
Right. Losing data sucks. And like that was the big thing, is it needed to be fault tolerant here.
Yeah. I want to see that these files are climbing, and if they're not, something should be poly capture. That was the one. Yeah, I tried that one as well, and that one is a pretty good native Mac OS app. But again, like the UI, I didn't love, and then we did lose a bunch of data once. I stopped and it was just black. Didn't line up. There's just gremlins all the way down with this type of stuff, and doing it in the browser takes a lot of that like lower level. Oh, this like weird mic doesn't work. It's a different frame rate or whatever. There's all these like weird things. The browser smooths out a lot of those APIs, and you just have to use get user media, which is nice.
Yeah, you know what? And it's so funny because this also started out as a thing I just built because I wanted to have this UI that if you're watching on video, you can see this UI here frames me up to shows like what a mobile frame would be. That's why it's called V-Framer, because I wanted to have something that would allow me to see what I would look like if I were to crop it straight vertical for vertical video. So that way, if I was like over here, I would want to be centered in the frame. Obviously, it gets you that like that. I can move my computer here to make sure everything is nice and lined up and looks even and normal. So this was like the initial thing. It's like, oh, I just want this screen recording app where then you can also like see what the vertical cut would be for anything. And then once I had that, it was like, oh, man, I could just keep adding sources. And the biggest concern for me was that if I added a lot of sources that I would see performance issues. And you can see some of these I'm recording like 3 screens here, a video and an audio. Yeah, three screens of video and audio. And I haven't had any issues there. I think I've been really impressed with the stability of this thing overall. So I've been using it, and I've been liking it. There's also a lot of interesting technical challenges here, because this product or project here is not just like, okay, so you have the Electron app. Then you say, okay, let's say I wanted to sell this thing. Let's say I wanted to publish this thing. Like, what do you need from there? Because clearly, the app itself is valid. It works. I've been using it. I've been liking it. So like, what is the thing that can take you to actually getting this to be like a production app? One, for Apple specifically, because that's what I'm targeting right now, even though I'm open to other things. I'm not going to sell it in the App Store, but I do want it to, when you buy it and download it, I want it to open up without issue. Apple like always gives you that gruff about like, you're downloading an app from an unknown source. Like, are you sure you want to do this? So you need to have an Apple developer account. I had to create certificates. I had to create like a team. I had to notarize the app on every build. So that way, when you open it up or I send it to Wes, it's not going to say, oh, it's corrupted. And that's a whole thing, right? Electron makes it easy enough, considering that's kind of what Electron does. That's actually one of the best things about Electron, is that it's so established that there's documentation and blogs on how to do absolutely anything in here. So if I wanted to figure out the notarization process, like that part of it was relatively simple, even if the Apple developer stuff is a giant PIA and takes forever to click around and figure out. Man, that's the MCP I need, Wes, is the, hey, just do the certificate thing for me. I hate this.
It's funny that they say that, because there was a CLI for interacting with the App Store, and Apple recently just shut it all down, because like it was a super well done thing where you could get tokens, you could log in via the CLI, you can install things via CLI, and Apple just nixed it all, probably because people are spamming the crap out of it, and just like, I'm sure Apple's review right now is just full of these just like vibe coded apps, and people are just generating 50,000 apps.
Yeah, for sure. Another big challenge here was, if I am going to sell it, what does that look like? Because the options is that you could rig Stripe subscriptions and user accounts. So I could have this be like, oh, you have to log in to use this thing. And then that login then checks the server to make sure you have paid to use the app. They want a subscription, right? That makes no sense. I'm not processing anything over time. Subscriptions are stupid. So like, I wanted a one-time purchase option. I wanted people to be able to use it and have a trial mode to make sure that it works for them before they pay for it. And then I want the purchase process to be just go off, you click buy, you get a license key, you paste that license key into the app, and then you're good, right? So I had to learn a lot about that stuff. In fact, I reached out to the creator of Recut on like, how did he do his? And then anytime I saw people posting about their apps on Twitter, I'd be like, what are you doing for your licensing? Just because I wanted to get a lot of opinions on how people were doing that. So you can see there is a trial mode, limited to one video, one audio, and then a link to get license. And this will just basically take you to a Stripe checkout. That Stripe checkout does a normal checkout, and when you complete the Stripe checkout for saying you've bought it, it sends a webhook message to a server. So Stripe has webhooks baked in. That sends a message saying purchase completed for this app to this email, and that sends a message to a Cloudflare worker I have. That worker then triggers the license generation. So the way that the license key stuff works is that I am using a project called Keygen, keygen.sh. Now, you can pay for Keygen, and a lot of people were suggesting that just paying for Keygen was the way to go because this stuff's kind of a PIA.
How can that be that complicated?
Right. Well, Keygen... So you have to have a license key that is validated to an email. The keys can be all kinds of stuff, like how many activations of this key you can do. So how many computers is this key good for? Those types of things. And there's a lot of really like small type of features you might want with a Keygen. And what I found, though, is that you can self-host Keygen. So instead of paying for it, you can self-host it, which is what I chose to do. So I have a self-hosted Keygen that I'm running, and I'm basically hitting my own API with an API key and an email. So that Cloudflare worker gets the webhook that comes in, and it says, okay, this person has bought it. Here's their email. That then gets triggered to the Keygen server, which generates a key for them. And then that takes that key coming back into the Cloudflare worker, and it sends them an email with their key. Once you have that key, you just head to the app, settings, paste that key in here, and it unlocks the app. Which, honestly, the Keygen server part, I don't want to say it was harder than building the app, because the app certainly has a lot of edge cases. But because I had to do so much knowledge acquisition to be able to get that part of it working. That part to me was the hardest part, was like, so how do I want to do this? I want to get this working. I want it to like be smooth. I want it to work offline. Like there's so many little things I had to think about there. Like, and once I got the Keygen server, it was fine. But the Keygen server also, the self-hosted version, does not have a UI. And I'm a UI kind of guy. I like clicking around stuff. So I'm like hitting this CLI, hitting this API and being like, did this work? Okay. I like, just debugging that kind of stuff was no fun. Paying for it probably wouldn't have been bad, honestly. But hey, I got a Coolify server up there. Keygen has an easy Docker setup. Like, why not,
Man. And did you host that on your Mac Mini, or did you put that in the cloud?
It is running on Coolify. Yeah, I have actually two Coolify servers. I'm going to move on. I had my first Coolify server was an ARM server, and I really liked it, but it is living in Germany, so everything is slow with it when I'm interacting with it because the latency there. And so I just, they don't offer ARM in the US, or they didn't. So I just spun up a new Hetzner Coolify that's local to me, and I'm moving everything over there. I love Coolify. Man, I throw all kinds of stuff on Coolify. It's so easy to just toss stuff up there. I need a container for anything. It's so easy to do that. So the Keygen server, that part was obnoxious, getting all of that configured and set up. But once I had the Keygen server, like the pieces all kind of fell into place. Whether you have the worker for the webhook, you have your Stripe, you have your Keygen server, and on top of that, like, it's amazing how much work goes into releasing this app. Because not only that, I have a waitlist app that I made because it was like, oh, I want people to know about this. So I made a waitlist app on top of it. And the waitlist app is so lo-fi. It is so lo-fi. It uses Google Sheets. It uses, basically, you enter your email and it puts it onto a Google Sheet. There. Which honestly was fine. It's like, that's all I needed to this, was to capture emails from anybody who was interested. And I didn't think this thing was going to go viral or anything to the point where I had to worry about people going nuts and ruining that form by spamming it with emails or anything like that. So that was pretty much it. That's how I've captured. I have not released yet. Hopefully I'm going to release really soon. What I want to do before I release this is get it in the hands of you and CJ ASAP. So that way you guys can test it out on some like non-scary things. So that way you can make sure it works for you, get some feedback on it, and then release it. Because heck, I just think it was so useful for me to have this, and now I'm using it in every recording I do. So if it's useful for me as somebody who does this full time, like, I got to imagine it's useful for somebody else.
I have hit every single possible recording issue in the world, so I will run it through. Will you give me a free license key?
Of course, I'm going to give you a free license key.
Okay.
There's also, by the way, there's also a menu. I have a little menu where you can pause recording and stop recording. There's keyboard shortcuts in here. Like,
you need a Stream Deck plugin now.
I need a Stream Deck plugin. You're right. You can customize your keyboard shortcuts if you don't like them.
Yeah.
I feel like I tried to make this exactly. Yeah, you can customize the countdown. You can have the FPS locked to 30 FPS if that's what you want. Yeah. I feel like I thought of everything I like and need in these tools. So let me know what you think on this thing. Let me know if you have any questions about it. But I feel like...
Oh, one question I have here is like what about like bit rate and resolution and all of that stuff? Like, I don't see any knobs for that. Can you control that?
There's no knobs for that, but maybe there should be. No, I just capture everything at high bit rate. So,
because that could be like a gig a minute though, can it not?
A gig a minute, no.
4K?
No, it's not. And it doesn't end up being like, look, where's the...
What's the bit rate?
That's a great question. What is the default bit rate I have set?
Because I'm pretty sure you can control the bit rate with... Yeah, you can. You control the bit rate with Get User Media. And you can crank it up. I've done that before, being like, I just want the best quality ever. And it was like a gig a minute. And you run out of hard drive space real quick.
Is that I set the bit rate a long time ago, and I haven't really touched it. I mean, let me look into that. It's so funny because I set it, and the quality's been good enough that I just haven't been like, I need to tune it. Yeah, that was like one of the early things I did way back when. So yeah, let me add some knobs there. I think that's a good idea. See, Wes, this is why we chat about this stuff. I need this
and
kind of feedback.
And some icons. I'll give you my feedback as well. I do that a lot of times when people send me their apps. I'll just hit record while I'm using it for the first time, and there's often some good stuff there.
I love that, and I like to think the UI looks pretty nice, man. I spent some time on this designing it, and there's a light mode, dark mode. I think they both look pretty cute. So
awesome.
Oh, some contrast issues. Oh no.
To run it. Ooh, I like that little.
Yeah.
It's very teenage engineering-esque.
Yes, that was my inspiration for sure. In fact, this entire UI was designed to kind of after the they have like a recording device that was kind of mimicking this in a little bit, but I didn't want it to be like just a copy paste skeuomorphic version of a teenage engineering project. I wanted it to be like kind of that inspired. Yeah. One thing that we didn't talk about here that is actually interesting is the CI/CD upload or the update process. So another thing that Electron makes somewhat easy is the automatic updates. Like if you wanted to like update your app, let me see if I can pop open some code. So if I release a new version of this, like there's so many ones that make you like even DaVinci makes you like go to their website and download a new copy of it and stuff. And
I hate
find
that.
I
Bamboo
hate that,
Studio
yeah.
does that too. Go and download it and quit the app. Like, no, just do it for me. Let me just restart the app next time I restart it, and it should update itself. Don't make me re-download some DMG and drag and drop it in.
Totally. And so I have CI for that using GitHub Actions. And it basically will build a release version of it and then set my all my Apple stuff. And then it's going to push it up to an R2 bucket. The app using Electron Updater checks that R2 bucket to see if there's a new version. And if so, it will prompt you to say new version installed or whatever. Update will take place on next relaunch of the app. So it's just a nice little macOS dialog that pops up. So updating is like really pretty painless. So that part to me was a bit obnoxious, but just like everything in Electron, there's just an endless amount of resources on it. So like, I think that was some of the killer stuff for me was like, oh, I want to get an automatic updater working. Oh, okay. Let me just Google that. And then, oh, there's an Electron updater. Oh, the process is really, really easy, or it is documented very well. Easy or not. So I thought that was a really interesting part too, especially because a lot of these challenges for somebody who hasn't ever done anything like this felt very daunting, and they were daunting until I moved to Electron. So I've never been an Electron hater, but like I kind of love Electron. Sorry, folks. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I've actually built like 2 or 3 more Electron apps since. So
this man must be stopped. So what's the website if people want to try it out or get on the list?
Oh, yeah. The website is vframer.video. We'll have that linked up in the show notes. And yeah, check it out.
All right. Peace.
Peace.